Welcome everybody to the 2020 Honda Civic. Today I'm checking out the Coupe SI. Very exciting. First time I've actually been able to test out a Civic, unbelievably. I've finally made it in the world of motoring journalism. For 2020 there's been a fair few updates for the lines of Civic, so I want to quickly touch upon those and then talk about what it's like driving this SI. So first of all, many thanks have to go off to Calgary Honda and the Dilawri Group that made this video possible. All of their information is linked down below. And at the end of this video, of course, I'll place it in my ranking system to see how it compares against compact cars as a whole, but then compact sporty coupes. So what came along for the 2020 model year is a slight update for the looks. You'll see that the bumpers up front have this color portion that splits through the fake black vent, where in years previous that wasn't there. If you're not a fan of how the previous version of the Civic looks, I'm doubtful that's going to be enough to sway your mind. I've never truly despised the look of the Civic, but it was far from the prettiest in its class. And then round back as well, you'll see that those fake vents are smaller than what they were in the previous model. Inside, no real big changes. For the hatchback for 2020, the standard model gets the 7-inch screen. Right, so let's quickly talk about what I'm driving here with the Coupe SI. You can get the SI in the coupe form or in the sedan form, with a 205 horsepower four-cylinder engine that's turbocharged and comes with a 6-speed manual, and I'm really quite fond of it. There's a lot in the driving character of this car that has really surprised me. 205 horsepower on paper really doesn't seem like a big number, especially for what is deemed a performance car, or at least a performance-oriented car. But honestly, getting behind the wheel and taking this thing for a drive, you're very rarely complaining about that figure. The way that the transmission is geared up and just how early on this turbocharger engages makes the Civic feel like a very responsive but a very quick car as well. No matter what gear you're in, you're able to use the full capacity of that turbocharger very early on. And even when you're in top gear going highway speed, so 110, and you need to quickly overtake someone, you just put your foot on the throttle, don't even worry about changing gear. And that turbo surge comes on early enough that you're able to get all the speed that you need, quickly overtake someone without ever changing gear. It's marvelous. The clutch pedal is incredibly progressive and one of the easiest clutches I've come across in recent memory. Getting into it, you immediately know the bite point, and it's incredibly easy to modulate. The 6-speed transmission with the far right and down for reverse has the slots for each gear very close together, so going from first and then into reverse on the total opposite side of the H pattern is a very small, delicate, easy move. Thinking of my car, my Mazda, just as I'm in neutral now, coasting down a hill, this movement of side to side of the car resting in neutral will be twice as much in my Mazda. Brilliant transmission, absolutely adore it. And even when you're driving at highway speed, you'll notice that when the car's locked in 6th gear, that gear knob doesn't vibrate at all. The manual transmission does have hill start assist, so the brakes engage when you're on an uphill segment. The engine and the exhaust isn't particularly exciting or sonorous. I think that might be the weakest element overall of the Civic, is just that the engine still feels like it's still very much based on its economy-driven foundations. Visibility all round is excellent. You'll see that the doors are really quite wide and they open far out, so getting in and out, it doesn't feel like a coupe. It still feels like a compact car in the class of sedans and hatchbacks of which we're very used to. And that brings along an interesting point of the coupe. It doesn't really have many competitors. To me, maybe a Hyundai Veloster, and if we're talking about the SI specifically, perhaps the turbo version of that car is best lined up as a competitor. But this is a much more traditional coupe, as the Veloster is always trying to put the hatchback world and the coupe world together. and depending on who you are, successfully or unsuccessfully. Brakes are strong, steering is tight, and you can change around the car a little bit with the sport mode. To me, the only thing I feel though is a little bit louder of an engine, but no more sonorous or nice to listen to. So the other things in this Coupe SI that I have to talk about, the fabric inserts that are on the doors, where you rest your elbows on the doors and on the center console. Even though they are fabric and you would kind of think it of a cheap material, it really isn't. Softly padded, feels great to just slide your hand across. It's the same material that's on the seats up front and in the rear. For someone that's my height, 6'4", I am a little compromised in this car. As you can see, my head is bashing up against the ceiling here. Maybe it's because of the sunroof. I don't know. I haven't been able to test this car without a sunroof. So if this could go further this way, or they could just bring the height up, I would be fine. But I do find myself having to lean a little more inwards to the center of the car to not have my head be bashed up against the roof. And maybe again, pertaining to my height, you'll see that these SI-specific bucket seats are featuring fixed headrests. They won't move. So for me, right at the back of the crown of my head is where I lean up against these seats. If you've ever paid attention to the labeling that's required to, make a car safe in the eyes of the government, you've got to have a headrest that covers entirely the back of your skull. So the SI and the Coupe, perhaps, might not be the best choice for a tall person such as myself, and maybe even taller as well. I don't know. But the seats feel like they are low enough. I can't get them any lower. There's a good amount of manual adjustability. Getting into the rear seats is impossible for someone my height. You would have to take off my head and my torso for me to fit back there comfortably. There is 3 seat belts though, so conceivably Honda thinks that you can put 3 people abreast back there. Getting into the rear seats is better done with the passenger side, and also getting out as well. You'll see that there's this kick push lever thing at the bottom of the passenger side front seat, so that people in the rear can kick that and the seat will spring forward, but not on the driver's side. An interesting little tidbit to note. The interior materials are certainly a mix of soft and hard plastics. You'll get the soft pieces at the top of the door cards and over the top of the dashboard, which is nice, but plenty of the other stuff you're going to come across is hard. That's not to be unexpected. So I'm personally not all that bothered by it, but I will say it's nice to have all of these color accents in this car. The red stitching on the wheel, the seat, and the door cards, and the red element that goes across the dashboard here. And then the faux carbon fiber is... it's always a miss for me. I will never like faux carbon fiber. I would actually appreciate it more if the satin grey color that's on the door handles, along the door cards as well, and then actually just below the faux carbon fiber was the whole stretch of it as well. Other things pertaining to the ergonomics, this brilliant center display has Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Isn't the latest version of Honda's touchscreen. For that you'd have to go into the Odyssey or the Accord, but it works very well. I have the climate control button simply laid out underneath, heated seat buttons there too. Some details with the Civic that are absolutely tremendous is this little hidden storage portion where you'll find a USB and a power outlet, from where you can plug in your USB, lead it up behind, and you have a little secure point where you could rest your phone and the cable, keep it charged in, have a nice little bit of cable management in a car. I think that's brilliant. And then down below there is also a little slot that you could put your sunglasses in, as we don't have a component up here of where you usually find it in a car. And then the center console has the clever sliding cup holders. You've seen this in the CR-V as well. It's an ingenious solution to use this space to be as flexible as possible. The boot space is actually fairly quite large. You're able to lift up that floor and see the spare tire underneath. couple of pulleys so you can lower the rear seats 60/40. So the Coupe SI, not a full performance car, but it offers plenty of thrills, but not strictly in its speed and its power, but how well-rounded of a vehicle that it feels to drive. And so that wraps up everything I want to say about the 2020 SI. Now, of course, I've spent most of my time focused on this specific vehicle. Hopefully, I'll be able to test out a 2020 version of the hatchback or the sedan sometime soon. As this is a car, strictly the coupe, that doesn't really have many competitors. The only thing that really comes to my mind is perhaps a Hyundai Veloster Turbo going up against specifically the SI. It's hard to place it against other vehicles, but as a compact vehicle, whether you're getting it in the coupe, the sedan, or the hatchback, this car, I think, is a segment leader. So much going for it, excellent ergonomics in the interior, and for all of the major aspects of driving, I think it is an absolutely brilliant car. So that's been everything from me. Thanks again to Calgary Honda and the Dilawri Group that made this video possible. All of their information is linked down below. And if you wouldn't mind leaving a like on the video, commenting as well, and sharing it if you think other people will like it too, that means the world to me. And of course, hitting the subscribe button, that won't hurt either. I'm pretty close to 10,000. Let's get there before the end of the year, yeah? All right, thanks a lot. Hope to see you here again soon.